Our story is probably a story that no one will ever believe, and people that we've told still don't believe it.
We left on a Friday night, and we were going to be there for a long weekend through Monday, I think. And I think we left around 9 o'clock at night, so it was dark already, and it was February, so it was cold, and it wasn't snowing here, but it was cold.
We were driving to Michigan at about 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a tremendous flash flood, and so we were driving through there, and there was about 5 feet of water. So we were driving through there with my little Nissan Sentra, and Dan said, you know, I was looking down at an iPod, and he said, "What does that sign say?"
The last thing I remember was seeing this little easel type sign on the side of the road, a orange caution sign, and I was probably looking down at the radio or something, so I didn't see what the sign said, but it wasn't very prominent, and I didn't think much of it. I thought it was just a...
There's a tiny little sign on an easel that said high water, but nobody ever expects that there'll be 5 feet of water.
Continued on, and the next thing I remember is just the car basically hit a wall of water.
And I had no idea what was going on. He didn't know what was going on. I mean, due to his quick thinking, though, he rolled down the windows. There were electric windows, and we still had enough power in the car that he could do that. All of the stuff was in the trunk. All of the stuff was in the back seat. All I could grab was my purse, and that was basically it.
It's really an eerie feeling when your headlights are on underwater.
We basically just floated over to the guardrail to the left, and cars that were going by, you couldn't see it because it was a dark spot right underneath the overpass. So cars were just going by, and they were splashing us. They didn't know either, and a couple of them spun out, and we were really nervous that they were going to hit us. But Dan and I were hugging each other.
And we ended up having to get out on top of the car because the car was completely filling up with water at this point.
So we had to climb up on top of the roof of the car, and it was the scariest moment in my whole entire life. But it took about an hour and a half for them to rescue us. We actually had to be rescued. Dan actually had to, he was wearing those rip-away jogging pants, and he had to get into the water because a police officer came over and said that we had to get down off the car because the water was getting too high.
So I get into this water and start to walk across, and then I ended up going back and just got Lynn and kind of carried her above the water so she wouldn't get all wet.
Dan went down first, and he obviously saw that I was really scared, so he came back and he picked me up and he carried me through the water to safety to the police car.
We're in the cop car for a while, and they ended up taking us to some crappy motel, and that's where we spent our weekend.
I finally got my car out, and we followed them to a hotel, and basically the only thing we had on us were the clothes on our backs and the really wet registration from my car.
Yes, my aunt lives in Michigan, one of my own, not very close to where we were at all, but they ended up coming to get us, and we stayed at their place, and my mom came up the next morning, and we all went home the next day. So we never made it skiing.
I mean, the rest of the story isn't as glamorous, I guess, or adventuresome. Dan was feeling like some fried chicken, so I was like, all right, I'll fry you up some chicken. So I made some fried chicken, and I guess it was so good that he decided to propose to me right then and there. So he asked me to marry him. He got down on one knee, and he asked me to marry him, and of course I accepted, and I said yes.